Welcome to the You Before Me Marriage Corner.
Hi, everyone.
Thank you for joining us. We like to sit down each week and have what we call the real marriage talk. We like to tackle the tough topics concerning marriage, a lack of intimacy in a marriage, overcoming miscommunication, moving past infidelity in the marriage or an affair, struggling children, keeping the fire burning after the kids come.
Yeah.
Overcome addictions with pornography or alcohol or anything that brings tension in the marriage. We like to sit down each week and share what we've experienced in those areas and what we've learned through the training and our coaching program and mentoring other couples. So welcome again. My name is Charles Jackson and this is my lovely wife, Zonette Jackson. And today's topic, we want to tackle what they call the 4 seasons of marriage. I think that's how Gary Chapman in his book talks about it, or you may have heard it as the stages of marriage. But essentially what they're talking about, they're using the analogy of the seasons to give a depiction of what happens in marriage. And so you kind of have spring where everything is growing in the honeymoon phase, the early phases where you're learning one another and you're getting close and everything is just kind of uphill, and it carries over into summer where you kind of mellow out and you're enjoying yourselves, you're enjoying being married. And then all of a sudden fall comes around and the leaves start to fall off and there's more tension, more miscommunication, a little more stress between you two, less time for one another for whatever reason. And then if there's no correction there, you move into the winter season or the dead of winter where it's just there's no connection. You know, one or the other person may seem very cold or disconnected for whatever the reason be. We won't really talk about those reasons now, but we want to cover just the wave tops. And then you kind of roll back after the winter, you learn, you grow, and you go back to spring and summer. And so those are essentially help people understand that there are ups and downs and seasons or stages of marriage.
That's right. But
to take the conversation a little further, marriage as a whole can be broken down into 3 phases of that honeymoon phase. Then there's that middle phase where you're having kids, careers are kicking off, school, and you're getting into the normal routine, the day-to-day stuff.
Children? Did you say children?
I did say children. And kids move out, and you become empty nesters, and you kind of spend the rest of your lives together, the two of you. But we want to focus on that middle season because that middle season or that middle stage is where a lot of people end up giving up, marriages fall apart, and when we're coaching couples and we're fielding questions from the different people that we deal with in our program, is that phase where they're just like they're not connecting, they don't know each other, and it's difficult. And there's a Greek word that my wife came across, myces, and it means middle, but it take it a little further, and it talks about being in the midst of. And so I really want to talk to that person who thinks that when they hit troubles and they hit trials, that it means that they're in a bad marriage or they married the wrong person. Right. And that's not the case, because you can be in the midst of a great marriage and still have and will need to face some challenges, some tough times, and some times of growing and learning.
You will have to navigate through
because you're going to have to navigate through those. And so in the midst of a good marriage, just know that you will have some challenges and some trials to go through, and you don't need to hightail it out of there and head to the judge's chambers and ask them for a divorce. And so we've heard of peaks and valleys as well. And instead of peaks and valleys, we kind of look at it a little different, where you know you have that phase where you're going along just fine and you're doing good, and then you hit some turbulence and you kind of dip down a little. And in the beginning, because you don't know each other well, it's really hard and you may dip really low during that time. But if you stick together, learn what it is that you need to learn to appreciate one another, you'll notice that you'll work your way back up.
That's right.
And then you kind of go along and you're doing good, and then you may dip down again. But instead of peaks and valleys, I kind of look at them as these growing areas, and then the application area where I'm now applying what I've learned and then I kind of dip down again into another valley or learning time, and then I come back up, right? And each time you will notice that the dip is not as deep as it was before.
That's right.
Because you've built up some resiliency. And so the stuff that you face in marriage that used to knock you way down here, it won't knock you that far down. And so those dips are not as low, and the rise tends to be a little bit longer than that dip season.
Because you're able to master.
Because you're able to master. And so instead of like peaks and valleys, I look at it as learning and application, or growing and mastery in our relationship.
That's right. And
you got to have that sense of bounce back. And this is just in life in general.
That's right.
I know this is a marriage podcast, but in life you need to understand that, you know, you're going to take some blows, but you don't have to be defeated and not get back up because you feel like everything is over. Learn what it is that you need to learn in life in general, but especially in your marriage, about your spouse and about your relationship, and especially about yourself. And then you bounce back and you go a little bit higher, and then you create a new norm for you guys where you're more connected and you're more
That's right.
Intimate with one another, and the marriage is just that much sweeter. And so instead of peaks and valleys, I look at it as learning, and then application, or, you know, that growing period, and then that period of mastery where you're really demonstrating the things that you had to learn. And so,
and every marriage goes through that time where there's difficulty. There's stuff that you have to overcome. There's not a marriage that hasn't gone through just situations and things that come up that you have to navigate through and learn to press forward.
Right.
And that's where I think that's what defines marriages that are beautiful, that are thriving. It's the marriages that are able to last even through the difficult situations. So endure. And just because your marriage is going through something, does not, everyone goes through that. So I just want to make that very clear, because a lot of times we just think that we're just the only ones going through it.
Right.
And that's never the case.
Yeah. So we're all about practical applications. And so in that middle season where you're really learning and, you know, you're dealing with all the stresses of life, you have to be very intentional about making it through those times. That's and right. So one way to do that is to learn to cherish versus change. And by that, I mean learn to treasure your spouse and the differences that are revealed, or even character flaws that are revealed during those times. Learn to cherish the good things.
That's right.
And treasure her or him versus trying to change them. Because oftentimes when we're frustrated and we're trying to navigate life, our spouse becomes the enemy, and our spouse becomes the problem. Mm-hmm. And the stuff that we loved in the beginning about them begin to frustrate us and, you know, kind of bring division. And we begin to magnify those flaws of the things that frustrate us. And so what we want you to do is shift your focus and shift your attention to now try and find the things that are just so admirable. The little things. Like, say your wife come home. She's a working wife and mother, and yet she still comes home at the end of the day, guys, and comes through the door, and the first thing she does is goes to the kitchen to prepare you a warm meal, and then bring a hot plate before you at the table or to your lounge chair where you may be sitting or wherever it's at. Those are the little things that everybody might not be doing in their relationship. And so if you have a wife that is doing that, cherish it. And vice versa, if your husband come home wife at the end of the day, and you know work was stressful, and you know everything is not right on the home front, but yet on the way home he picks up the phone and call you to see if you need something from the grocery store, and he stops and grab your bananas or whatever it is. Treasure that. Cherish that. Don't take it for granted, because it's hard to muster up the strength to do something good or think about somebody else when we're frustrated. And I can attest to this, because as a man, when you're frustrated with trying to be the head of the household and work might not be going so well and outside entities are kind of beating you down, you know, and to be able to look outside yourself and then look to your wife and say, you know, how can I put a smile on her face and make her day, when inwardly I'm a little frustrated, you know, that's hard to do. And so if you have a husband that is able to do that, cherish that, treasure that, and bring it to his attention. Thank him for it. Acknowledge it. You know, we like words of affirmation.
That's
you know,
right.
It builds
Ladies,
us up.
That goes a long way. I know a lot of times we tend to focus on what they're not doing and to-do lists and stuff. And just taking that time to say thank you for the simple things, like thank you for playing with the kids today, even though you were so tired. That means a lot. That goes a long way. And that really encourages a man. Yes. So ladies,
that's true.
we should keep affirming our husbands.
Yeah. Because ultimately, it's not up to us to change our spouse. Mm-hmm. God, through the work of the Holy Spirit, is the one who changes us. And even though He may use relationships, I believe He uses relationships to grow us and develop us. It's still ultimately not up to us to go out our way to try and change them.
Right.
It's up to us to cherish them, the differences, and appreciate them, and allow God to work on their character. And it may be through us, but it's not up to us to kind of press it. And so we actually want to invite you to take a little challenge with us. We're going to do a 30-day challenge in our You Before Me Facebook group, where for the next 30 days, take a journal or maybe a nice card that you either buy or make yourself, and just for 30 days straight, either in the morning or in the evening, find one thing that your spouse did that day or the day before that you want to just write down and cherish, something that was admirable or something that was praiseworthy.
Yeah.
And at the end of the 30 days, whether it's a journal or a card or however you want to do it, some type of electronic version for all the techie people of this age, but present it to them at the end of those 30 days and say, I just want you to know I appreciate you, and I cherish the little things that you do to keep the family together, to keep the relationship going, to be the man or the woman that you are. And just watch their reaction. Watch how it really changes them, and to want to do more of those things, because they might not even be aware of the impact that it's having on you. And also,
and those little things are the things that make a big difference when we are going through that middle phase of our marriage, where things are tough and there's so many outside influence, so many just outside pressures. Those little things change the atmosphere.
Drastically in the
keeps
home.
You going. Keeps you going.
And it's going to shift your mindset to now we're so used to focusing on the bad things and what we want them to change, and what's frustrating us, and we're used to focus on that. When you start to focus on the good and look at the small things that they're doing that you can thank them for and that are praiseworthy, it changes your heart and it changes your mindset, and it'll override and probably make less important those things that you've been harping on and magnifying all this time. And you'll have that reversal effect where now you're just really looking to appreciate them and thank them for the things that they are doing, instead of harping on them all the time, trying to change them for the things that they're not doing. So treasure or cherish versus change. And let's see at the end of the 30 days the difference that it makes in you, in your spouse, and in your relationship in general. Just know that you will go. That was the first lesson we learned from our mentors early in our marriage.
That's right.
Nikki and Casey, give a shout out to them. That there will be seasons that you are going to go through. That's right. And it's your the character that is developed through those seasons that is going to keep you two together, and that's going to make your marriage strong and make it one that lasts.
Yes.
And so
those tough seasons, I believe, are the ones that make marriage so beautiful.
Yeah.
So you see a lot of couples that you admire. You're like, man, I want what they have. They went through some tough seasons. Yeah. Believe it.
And if you ask them, they'll probably share them with you.
Yeah. But they didn't give up.
Right.
They kept at it, and they figured out a way to navigate through those times, and it ended up being such a beautiful thing.
Absolutely.
Which I think, that is how God intended it.
Absolutely. So we thank you for taking the time to listen to our impromptu video. This was just a topic that we discussed today and was really on our mind this morning. We wanted to jump on here and share it with you guys and challenge you. We'll continue the conversation in our You Before Me community Facebook group, where we look to build a community of thriving, happy couples who are able to go out and impact and be a source of life to other couples who may find themselves struggling in different areas of their marriage. So we thank you for tuning in.
Yes, come on in and chat with us.
Join the You Before Me group to continue the conversation, and we look forward to sitting down with you guys again real soon. All right. Bye, guys.